Good morning. You probably think I'm Pedro, but that's Pedro. I'm Tom. We both, if you don't know our companies, we both changed our company names a couple of years ago, 4 or 5 years ago. And you might know our companies as the ABCs. We were the original ABC in the United States. So we're tripartite auditing organizations. And we've been, it was a couple years ago, Bob Liadice, the CEO of A&A, asked me, what could AAM do to help solve the fraud problem? And everybody knows it's kind of a growing problem, but didn't know how big it was, I think, until over time, over the last couple of years. And so this is a little bit about what we're doing to solve the fraud problem. We're doing it through validating publishers. So here's a little diagram that will tell you a little bit about how we see things. The U.S. digital ad spend is projected to be about $83 billion in 2017, and worldwide it's projected to be about $200 million. But if you take a look at how that breaks down, and you look outside of Facebook display and Google search, you've got about 30 billion that's being spent on a potential of 329 million sites. But guess what? Only about 3% of those sites actually get the most human page views. And so what's happening out there is, it's kind of a mess. And so we're trying to help advertisers understand where to place their dollars and by verifying sites with human audiences. You see a bunch of brand name sites up here. You see sites that we call of questionable purpose. Some of those sites are outright fraud sites, but most of the human page views go on about 11 million estimated legitimate sites. So when you think about that, and you think about these brand names, you might say, okay, well, why don't I just advertise on all the brand name sites? Well, because even premium brands or names that you know may not have clean audiences. So that's what we're focused on. That's the situation. The problem is you see a large portion of the ad spend is wasted on fraud. So ads are shown to bots that never convert for advertisers, and the advertisers question their investments. Ad fraud sends money to criminals instead of good publishers. We've seen examples of that recently, but a lot more of it goes on than we're able to see. And there's been a race towards, low CPMs, and it poisons the market and has created a lot of ill will between publishers and advertisers. So the question is, what can be done? Well, the solution is to increase ad spend on publisher sites with human audiences. And that's kind of a simple thing to say. It's a very difficult thing to get to. But what we're focused on is identifying spend on sites that are truly premium, so helping marketers spend their money. And it's a circle. When advertisers spend their money on highly human sites, their ROI increases. Then they can spend more of that money with the good publishers. We call them the good publishers because they're doing all the right things, who can invest in quality publishing and attract more human audiences and then complete the cycle. So we do that through a service that we call AAM Quality Certification. It's called IBC Quality Certification in Brazil. But it's a 3-step publisher certification process. It focuses on validating business processes, and this is probably the most important thing that we do. We go in and look at what publishers are actually doing with their people, and we interview their people and make sure they're adhering to best practices and principles. We also check the quantity, we verify the quantity, and we verify the quality. Digging in a little bit on that, just so you get a sense for what do we do in that. Well, in the process review, we look at the organizational infrastructure, we look at how the site monetizes itself, we look at the ad tech partners, we prefer if they're MRC accredited, and we look at audience acquisition strategies. Are they buying a lot of traffic and what's going on with that? On the quantity side, We verify the accuracy of the third-party metrics, and we do that. You'd be surprised how many people don't actually implement their Google Analytics properly up front. So we usually go through a process with publishers of making sure that that's done properly. We assure proper implementation of all third-party tools, monitor the traffic levels, and we do a continuous measurement on it. And then lastly, we do a verification of quality. And that is basically looking at the human versus bot composition. We don't create new measurements. That's not what we do. We're not about creating a new number. We're just taking a look at what's going on there. And we do a diagnostic consultation with the publisher. When we see a problem, we dig into it and help them mitigate that problem. We do that on a continuous basis as well. So the way to think about it is we think about what we do with the quality certification techniques. We use technology and people, but we think about a lot of the technology that we use as a smoke detector. Because anybody that tells you that, you know, they have the perfect fraud detection technology is right for about 1 second, because everything keeps changing on everybody. So what we do is we see things, we dig in, and we help mitigate. So think about that as kind of a smoke detector approach. A couple case studies here, just so you can kind of see a little bit about what we look at. The top publisher here, you see a lot of red, that's bot traffic. The blue is human traffic, and there's some in between that has different characteristics of human and bot. But that's a lot of bot traffic. It's 34, actually spikes up to about 50% from what I can see here. And we asked the publisher to stop buying traffic, and guess what? The bot levels come down and start to look more normal. And second publisher here, similar situation in that they were getting some traffic from a data center. They filtered that traffic after we found that for them, and then they are able to be, you know, in a situation where they can be certified. So I think the main point of this sort of thing is you have to do continuous monitoring, because this stuff can change, you know, by the minute, and publishers have to be committed to mitigation of the issues. And good publishers are like that. One of the publishers we're working with right now is so committed to it. So even when you bring them a little bit of bad news, they see it as good news, because they want to provide quality and be that quality publisher that advertisers want to go to. We get asked a lot, how does this work? Is this in competition with MRC or TAG or whatever? No, it's complementary. When you think about, we all do a lot of things in our different organizations, but when you just think about ad fraud, MRC is ensuring valid, reliable, effective media measurement. That's what they're doing. TAG is combating negative impacts of fraud across the whole supply chain, but we're focused on minimizing fraud right at the publisher level with third-party certification. So they all kind of overlap a little bit in some places, but they do different things. And they're all necessary, I think, and more things are necessary to combat the fraud problem.
And that's because the nature of the environment we live in is global. And that's supposed to benefit not only those two countries, but also the footprint of global publishers, because, I mean, there is more and more of those. And also global advertisers, global agencies, and local agencies. That's why we try to be, as much as we could, to have just one technology, one presentation. And so that's why in Brazil, although we speak Portuguese, it's called Quality Certifier, because that's the lingua franca. And I think important to close this session before the magic one comes after me is to mention that this program is open to any tripartite organization that's willing to join efforts, like the members of IFABC, which is the International Federation of Audit Bureau of Certifications. And thank you.